Welcome to Thoughts of Our Founders, the podcast for the Higher Education Leadership Foundation. I'm Herman Felton, one of the co-founders of Health, and I also moonlight, or rather I'm moonlighting now, but my day job affords me the wonderful opportunity to be the president of Wiley College, 17th president of Wiley College. Today, we have a wonderful guest here today, a young man by the name of Jarrod Benjamin, who is the co-founder of the Lead firm. He's going to talk to us today about some pretty interesting stuff. I find it to be pretty progressive, but want to share with you that this is one of our final episodes in the series of entrepreneurship, professional and personal development. We've had an extraordinary run here for the last month or so, just really having good conversation with the intelligentsia of the space. And today is no different. And so on behalf of the other founders, Melville Williams, Alfred Anthony Pinkard, and Greg Dees, I want to welcome you here this evening, Jarrod. What's going on, brother?
All is well, man. Thank you for the opportunity to be before this audience. I'm an avid watcher of this series as well. I've been able to see some great guests, but also see what the future of higher education is evolving into, and see how the expertise of our people who are really championing higher education, how they're able to exercise in their craft and really just take it to the next level.
It's pretty bright, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, man.
There are so many highly credentialed, disciplined, skilled individuals who are committed to, as I say quite often, labor in the vineyard of HBCUs. And it's such a worthy, first and foremost, being in education, be it elementary, secondary, higher ed, it doesn't matter. I think that it's a noble profession. And whether you are teaching or supporting the teaching, I think it's a really great space. But I, like you, am really encouraged by the amount of brilliant brothers and sisters who are really laboring in the space, man.
Definitely, man.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, man. Where's home?
Well, I'm from Nexus, Louisiana. So
Okay.
North Louisiana. Sometimes you got to give a landmark to let folks know where it's at. So I'm right.
I know where it is. I got a ticket rolling through that mug.
Oh, we good for that now. We're going to take care of you. But historically, we just hit a big milestone. We just had our first African-American mayor in history. And we are the oldest parish in Louisiana. So
Wow.
That was huge to see one of my classmates champion the elections and become the mayor of our great city.
Wow.
Born and raised.
Born and raised.
Yeah, I left Natchitoches my 10th grade year, and I moved to Houston, Texas, Missouri City, Texas, to be honest.
Okay.
And I graduated from high school there. June 2nd is when I graduated. June 6th, I entered the U.S. Army. 4 days later.
Oh, wow.
Told the recruiter, hey, man, you better put me in now because I might change my mind.
Yeah. That's real good advice. Thank you for your service, man.
Thank you as well, man. I know I often hear the leadership from the Marine Corps in you, so I know it's bread and bone.
Yeah, man.
After that, I did a tour in Iraq. Within 7 months of being in the military, I left AIT, got to Germany, overly excited about my first tour overseas, and Iraq was my first 15-month tour, OIF1. I went to Iraq, I came back, did some time as a non-commissioned officer instructor in Georgia. 2 years, went back to Germany. Went back to Germany only to deploy again to Iraq. That went on for about 3 occasions. I went to Iraq 3 separate times. After becoming a warrant officer, my 7th year in the military, I finished my career as a warrant officer of CW3. I was a cyber technician, but I sustained some injuries in Afghanistan that ended my career early in a medical retirement. So I decided as a non-traditional student, I wanted to finish my education at HBCU. So I went to Florida Memorial, had an awesome opportunity to get my degree there, but also enter higher education. And Dr. Lalonde and Dr. Artis saw something in me. And Dr. Lalonde said, you know what, Jarrod, you have a strong touch in the veteran arena. I want to increase our veteran population.
Yeah.
So I worked diligently to increase the veteran population at Florida Memorial University, and kind of worked my way around different elements of student affairs, left enrollment management, went into fraternity sorority life, fraternity sorority life to student activities, student affairs. Then I went into outreach, and then academic affairs after I got my master's degree is where I kind of landed, doing some adjunct work. But also, after almost 20 years in cyber, I realized there was a need for cyber to grow and expand at our liberal arts institution.
Well, okay. Well, hold on one second, because there's so much richness that you've shared with us. So are you Greek?
Oh yeah, I'm a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated.
Okay, wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, definitely.
And the veteran population. I remember being a 28-year-old freshman myself, and how that non-traditional experience was for me. It was wonderful. For one reason, I knew why I was going to college. I knew what it meant, and I was working a full-time job at the same time. And so it was business. Was your experience like that as well?
Well, I kind of dabbled in both, to be honest, Doc. It was a strange situation because I came from Hawaii in college, and I came as an elected international second vice president for Phi Beta Sigma.
Wow.
And so when I showed up, I was embraced by the Divine Nine in such a way. But as much like yourself, 27, 28 years old, I thought it would be a good idea to try to have such a traditional experience. I lived in the resident hall one semester. And I did that. And, being about, I would say, 8 years more mature than the entire population you're living around. But it also helped me appreciate the profession that I entered.
Yeah.
So now empathy and compassion for a mother inquiring about the safe space of her child's resident hall, I can relate to that inquiry because I lived there. I knew what it was like. So a part of it initially was like, oh, what was you thinking, Jarrod? But then later on, as I grew in this profession, I'm happy that I chose that decision. So yeah, it was definitely different. I didn't work though initially, I will tell you that. So
okay.
I didn't work. Actually, in conversation with Dr. Lalonde, the position introduced itself.
Okay, so you actually found a gig on campus.
Yes. Towards the end of my time there, I ended up leaving to go get my MBA degree. And while getting my MBA, I was introduced to an opportunity to come into enrollment management. And I looked at it initially like I was already sustained financially, but then I grew up, there was a passion that was birthed in me for HBCUs. And I knew if I wanted to give back, I knew I could give back financially, but I wanted to give something that was non-refundable, which was my time.
Yeah.
And so I sowed that time in fertile land, and sowing it in fertile soil produced a career for me, a second career.
Okay, well, let's talk about that second career. But before we get into that second career, I had a pleasure of having a conversation last week with three young men, Jaleel Thurman, Travis Jackson, and another one of their partners, Torrance. And young entrepreneurs, and they were talking about the incubation that really permeates on our campus. Did that play a role into your thrust into your own business?
Well, what really did it for me, in all honesty, it wasn't initially the entrepreneurial spirit that birthed Lead Firm. It was the idea of wanting quality programming for students and campus-based professionals that was relevant to the now. I felt as though there was a rotation of consultants, speakers, vendors, trainers that were recycling material that was not relevant to how our HBCU operated. And I didn't like it as a student. I didn't like it as a professional. And I wanted to see, I wanted to produce something that could change that tradition and do something non-traditional.
So you're suggesting that the folk who were coming on the campus were merely blowing off last week's presentation and trying to apply one size fits all, and that bothers you.
Yeah, especially if HBCUs were not their primary audience. So now you're bringing something that was not applicable to the space in which I truly was depending on some professional development or some development for my peers who may not have been at the same level of maturity, who was really in a need for that program. And I just felt like some of those programs were not relevant. And if they were relevant, I felt as though you can give great information, but we can be lectured in the academy. You got to bring a level of energy, sometimes humor, storytelling, vulnerability. Some folks didn't want to be vulnerable. You know, you can preach to me about hazing prevention, but you have to be vulnerable and say you submitted yourself to it during your undergraduate experience when you didn't know the risk.
Know what that felt like.
Right. And so, you know, to preach, but not share a level of vulnerability was something I wanted my company to champion and address.
So you saw a void, you ran to that void, and you decided that you were going to fill the void.
Yes.
We're talking about securing the bag, integrating the micro credentialing into the academy with Jarrod Benjamin, co-founder of the Lead Academy or the Lead Firm. And let's talk a little bit about the Lead Firm. How did that come about? I know we've talked about there.
Definitely.
There was this little, I guess that was a part of it, a part of what you thought was a part of what. Okay, so let's talk about the Lead Firm.
Well, first, I got to really show some love to my co-founder, Taylor McCain.
Yes, sir.
Although she let me freedom run with this strategy or this vision, she definitely became one of my hugest supporters. And we replaced the pronoun you and I with we in all that we did to build our company. And so she was working in fraternity sorority life at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I was transitioning from Hawaii to Miami. And out of frustration, answering a friend's call, she was sharing some work frustrations. And I said, I have a solution. We can become our own leaders and our own boss. Now, I will tell you, when I said it, it was to calm a friend's frustration at the moment.
Yeah.
It was no strategy, no plan, no LLC, no bank account.
Didn't matter.
Right. And so her response was, let's do it. And so I believed she was the national second vice president for Delta Sigma Theta, and we served during the same time. Okay. And so I felt as though we both had campaigns that were not promised or named to win. So I already saw us champion something together as friends that was doubted. So I said, let's do it. And so Lead Firm initially started out like most companies, very slow, Brother Doc. I got to tell you, I had 3 gigs our first year. It was like, man, who all do I have to email? But then I quickly learned relationships play a vital role in young entrepreneurship. And so I made 2 commitments early on. Before I had a values, mission statement, could afford a website, even had a bank account and an EIN, I made a commitment. I would never gossip as a company, and I would never badmouth a competing company. And so those 2 things became foundational, really telepads for us to just leap up into. Because when folks shared stories of other companies, I never showed discontent or frustration, or even looked at other companies like, man, they're getting all the gigs. How do I penetrate? So we started out as a programmatic filler, or a programmatic thrust for fraternity sorority life. That was the ultimate goal. I wanted champion hazing prevention, not just because of the process in which I was brought into the fraternity. It was in the role in which I served at national capacity for Phi Beta Sigma. When I saw that, the insurance premium was the game changer for me. When I saw how much we paid in a premium, and I was thinking, do we get to break it up in 12 months? When you pay car insurance, you don't want to pay your premium.
Not at all.
Like, no. And so at that time, I had to make a commitment and say, I want this to be here for my son. And so how do I make that happen? So I became an educator in that aspect. And we grew from that. into, one of my mentors, Dr. Caldwell, at that time was the associate provost of Florida Memorial University. He said, if you want to be a good higher ed professional or practitioner, every morning you should start with reading an article. And so I read an article every morning and I began to file them. And as I read each article, I began to categorize, and I got really interested in diversity, equity, inclusion. And that was pre-George Floyd, pre-Breonna Taylor. And so I noticed it's an extreme wave now, but that was an education mean that wasn't always accepted.
You've early on touched on two things that money can't buy, and you can't fake. An earnest desire to be learned, right? And this notion of forsaking gossip, forsaking simpleton behavior. It is astonishing the level in which that occurs. I've experienced it both, in the professional space, but as, our foundation, the same thing, like the vitriol that comes at you is unreal. And what we found is when we ignore that, the blessings that come from just keeping that out of your spirit, not even worrying about that, is just tenfold. I want to spend a couple more minutes talking about why it's so important to, really learn the academy, not just your space, not just the things that really interest you. Let's start right there. Let's double down on why it's really important, not just as an entrepreneur who wants to service the space, but a young practitioner who wants to be an administrator.
Yes.
The type of conversations that you have with administrators is about the academy. And no greater way to be versed than to have the Bible every morning. I get the daily briefings from the Chronicle and I read those, but I also read Jared Carter's information all day long, every day, HBCU Digest. Talk to me about that, man.
Well, if you ever want to see a failing institution, this is just my own philosophy. This is how I think. If you ever want to see a failing institution of higher learning or higher education, find an institution that causes an immediate division between student and academic affairs. If you don't want to bridge that gap, you're going to find a failing institution when they operate as two individual entities. So for me, I went into academic affairs for 2 years. And I did it not because it was my passion. I got to be honest. I'm bred and born. I love student affairs. But I wanted to learn the academy holistically. That was one thing that I found that was important, and understanding how all these things connect. Having conversations with institutional advancement, understanding how to foster and steward relationships, and how that truly secures the bag for the institution when it comes to fundraising and capital campaigns. Understanding grant writing, that became one of my expertise that made me sought after. I didn't just apply for grants, but I read awarded grants. And I began to dig into those grants. And then when I read the grants, I read the budget narrative. I read the performance deliverables. I read the reports each quarter that didn't belong to me because I wanted to understand the functionality of the academy. What keeps the wheels rolling when the gas tank almost on you? And so understanding that, and then coupling it with my passion. Because I got to be honest, sometimes we do things professionally that pays our bills, but it doesn't always match our passion. So, everybody always wondered, my PhD focus is cyber engineering and education. Has nothing to do with student affairs. But Jarrod, why did you choose? It's my passion. But I figured out a way to couple my passion with my with my profession. And now when I execute, I don't execute with a moment of frustration because I'm passionate about my presence in that location.
Yeah.
So, for me, I charge every higher ed practitioner to welcome conversations on the academy side, but understand what tenure track is, what the road to tenure looks like. Why is it valued to consider adjunct, and even if you're a practitioner? Because you learn aspects of the classroom that we always say on the student affairs side. I wish that faculty member knew what I was going through in the resident halls. I wish they knew what I was going through when I'm processing the student through the bursar, financial aid, recruiting them, matriculating them. So now you get to understand both sides. And when you understand both sides, it creates a full picture on how higher education, not even how we are now, but you can also be creative in how we should evolve.
Yeah, no, the nexus between each division is really strong, but the clarity that each division has about the nexus is not strong. People are not, the cross-pollination doesn't occur often. Leaders of divisions aren't requiring people to understand what it means to work from one place to another. And when you get that, I think you have an institution that functions really well. Look, I think it's difficult to do that. In theory, it sounds great, but to your point, I think you find a functioning, well-functioning organization, institution, when you have that type of synergy across the campus. So I think that's a great point. Spend a couple of minutes on the executive presence, or a piece of the executive presence, which deals with civility. And so your notion about making this decision at the very beginning to not respond negatively, or to not play in that sandbox, do you feel like that was pretty has been fruitful for you? And if so, why?
Doc, that practice grew us from them 3 gigs a year we discussed earlier to right now I have 126 clients. I partner with 126 institutions a year because what we started 5 years ago, that is our fundamental practice now. Now, do we hear our name being talked about? Do we hear our company? Yes, but we don't pay it any attention in a negative way. What I've done is I've understood that in the academy, in consulting is a very saturated market in higher ed. Is what it is. But relationships, like I said before. So what I don't do, drama and gossip causes situationships, where people are going to judge me by the situation, or they're going to speak about me because of a situation. Relationships, people are going to talk about the service I provided to their institution, I provided to their professional portfolio, or to their student body. And so I want that narrative to follow Jarrod Benjamin and Taylor McCain as long as lead firm is continuing to be pregnant with vision so that we can birth leaders at these institutions.
Yeah, no, the sheer sign of relationship building is sustainability. You've been around for 5 years, you have 156 or 126 partners. It speaks for itself. And so I would echo those sentiments, and I applaud you for taking that route. It's tough when people move in a space that's not congruent to happiness. It's tough not to be drugged into that, because we're all human at the end of the day. And when you're doing work that's rooted out of service, it's tricky, subjective, objective, whatever you may have it. Some days you may not live up to what people expect, but I always think that the litmus test should always be malice before people really run you into the ground. Determining whether or not there is malice on your activity, if there was malfeasance, if there was not, you just didn't prefer the way I presented, or the way our foundation convenes, that's one thing. But, to go off on a tangent is another. But taking the higher road and trying to ignore it, not respond to it, is another. I think that's pretty noble. And I wish many more of us understood that. And it's not, it's one thing to get a website and an LLC and say, I'm open for business, I'm a consultant. But it's another to have relationships. And I think there's a huge difference. Let's laugh for a second and talk about the first year.
Whew.
And, and
My first gig was UNC Chapel Hill.
okay.
I can tell y'all now that check barely got me there and back home. So,
you had to give away the services, basically.
Come on now, I'm telling you. But I also knew certain names were validating on your portfolio. But I was not. There was no one who was open to mentoring new consultants in higher ed on price points. You had to figure that out trial and error. So too cheap, you look amateur. Too high, you price yourself out. Too low, you forget that most of these grants can't pay for travel from out of state, so you have to do an inclusive invoice. So it literally was like, you reach out to people, they're open to subcontract you, and book you, but they're not open to mentor you through the booking process. So that first year, my Lord, I got to be real, it was rough, but I can tell you, I don't mind even shouting out a few things that really, really helped us out. NASAP,
let's talk about those things.
Oh yeah, NASAP SLI. I'm forever indebted to Jimmy Lunnerman. Those brothers saw something in me and really allowed me to speak to that consortium of HBCUs that shows up every summer between UMES and Savannah State. I didn't see them their earlier years when they was at other schools. But though these last 5 years that I've been able to have significant presence there, it's changed my business profit-wise and changed my customer base. That was one thing. If you want to talk about some laughing, I can tell you.
So NASAP is not exclusive to African Americans, but that is the place where you will find predominantly the membership is African American for student affairs practitioners, right?
Definitely. It's going to be your consortium of the majority of your HBCU student affairs practitioners and African American practitioners that are in the PWI space, but they still want to be around those of the African diaspora.
Be connected to the hot stove.
There it is.
I understand it. And the other is NASPA.
NASPA, yes, that is going to be holistically. That's going to have your from community college to PWI to HBCU. I have been a member of NASPA for 4 years as well, and have actively participated in their conferences. But I want to be fully transparent and saying, my first 2 years, over 80% of our customer base was historical Black college universities.
Yeah.
And that was a direct result of my commitment to supporting NASAP.
Okay.
That was huge. Also, understanding where to be at, Brother Doc. I got to be honest with you. You got to know where to. A lot of folks like, where are you? I go to the Bayou Classic. I go to the. My business partner brother plays for North Carolina A&T. Her grandfather's a part of the Greensboro Four, so I've been an indirect fan of North Carolina A&T, right?
Right.
So in going to the different classics and the Celebration Bowl, I was able to rub elbows with leaders who was willing to trust my product on a one time, right? And that one time has now turned into 4 years of relationship. Yep. So, it's being in the right place at the right time and deciding to research before presenting versus present, then go back home and research.
So let's talk about really quickly cultivating and stewardship of relationships, right? There's a huge difference between those two things that a lot of people don't understand. And I would gander to say that it's the reason why you have repeat business.
Yes.
Cultivating and stewardship. Let's talk about that.
I'm not going to ask to be nowhere where I won't service, where I won't steward, number one. So I am a tremendous donor to our HBCU family. And I call that a family. I believe a lot of times, because I've worked in that space, I know what's bringing me to your institution. Yeah. It's your state appropriation, federal grants, sometimes your TRIO money. So whatever we got to do to make it happen.
Out of three.
So come on now. I understand. I'm clear on that. But I also know when it comes to me, it's not grant money anymore. It's revenue. So I have to figure out how can I reverse some of that revenue and sow back into the schools that trust me. So I do that often. I'm very strategic in ensuring that it's no secret that Lead Firm is an avid HBCU supporter, number one. Number two, I ensure that sometimes to get on level playing field, when Jarrod was just Jarrod with a bachelor's degree, Doc, I wasn't getting a lot of engagements. So I knew to knock on the door and to get at least a halfway answer, I had to get a graduate degree. to now knock on the door and be able to almost walk in before they say, come in. I'm working towards my PhD. So I'm telling you, I knew those were going to be some game changers. And also the last thing in stewarding is being authentic. Every relationship I started didn't start with me getting booked.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an effort to be booked. Some of them were genuine relationships because they were like-minded individuals. And I was like, you know what? Dr. Cheney is a dope brother. I just want to get to know him a little bit more. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Womack is a dope brother at Claflin. At that time, he was a hair store. I want to know him. Ronaldo Brown is a dope brother. Brandon Dumas is a dope brother. I want to get to know these brothers a little bit more. Understand. And in knowing them, they heard something in me, saw something in me, and then they became partners as it pertains university partners. And that. And then the last thing I would say when it comes to stewarding, much like I just stated, don't always do something for something. Sometimes it just got to be because you just know it's the right thing to put your interest and effort. And if you ain't got $1, my mom always say, get something that you can't get back. It's your time.
Yeah.
So when I didn't have no funding and lead firm to be an avid donor, we were proofreading resumes for HBCU students.
Yeah.
And turning resumes back over. When I didn't have money, I was building consortiums and writing grants so that 3 or 4 HBCUs were able to be awarded at one time. So I gave my time when I didn't have no earnings. Yeah. And now I'm able to give earnings now,
It's hilarious in that the other side of the coin is that we don't always believe that our ice water is cold either, right? We put more credence in other colored organizations more than we do our own. We give our brothers and sisters more of a challenge as it relates to being booked or getting booked or even getting in the door. It's pretty astonishing on one hand, but you try not to get used to it. But when it continues to happen, you come to realize that we devalue ourselves and those who look like us trying to do something for the space at a level that is unconscionable to me.
That's real.
So it is, I think people need to be cognizant of that as well when they're talking about getting some consultantships in this space. It ain't for the faint of heart. And
no.
Ain't is not proper grammar, but it's good communication right about now. It ain't for the faint of heart.
And you're talking about somebody who I left higher ed in a practitioner capacity and consulted for a year full time. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you now, you can forget if you don't know how to steward, you don't know how to, cultivate relationships. You're gonna be wondering how you're gonna pay that light bill and that mortgage.
Yeah.
So you really have to be committed to the work. And you got to understand, there's going to be people who look like me. There's going to be institutions that are like where I graduated from that just won't book me. I'm okay with that. There's going to be people who don't trust the product. But what I've grown to learn through my mentor, through my sponsor, through my work is a lot of folks who didn't book me now, Brother Doc, now they're citing me because I've published. And now they're asking me to come. And now I have to find space in the calendar when they could have just built a relationship early on.
Mike Jones all day long.
I appreciate it. And so now it's like, I've understood now we're as valuable as our research, our time, and our effort when we're in the academy. And so now I ensure that I'm bringing thought-provoking research. Yep. I'm bringing things that I believe the HBCU space wasn't going to do immediately right now, to be quite honest. Mm-hmm. And now we're jumping on it because we have researchers and we have practitioners that are knowledgeable in understanding what the wave of the future is going to be for our institutions.
Well, the thing that I made a mistake when we first started health was talking about what wasn't happening at HBCUs. And I quickly learned that there's actually a lot going on at HBCUs. The same thing that's going on at PWIs is going on at HBCUs. In fact, the genesis of a lot of the stuff is the work that we do at HBCUs. And so I sort of was in a space where I made a comment that, we aren't as progressive. And a researcher actually, helped me to understand that, there's 104 of us out here, and we all come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. But some of us are doing some extraordinary work. And so that conversation stays at the forefront whenever I start thinking about what we don't have the capacity to do.
Right.
I'm reminded of that conversation and knowing that, we have the capacity and there is a lot going on. There are just so many institutions that we don't have, the wherewithal to really tell the story as good as we possibly could.
And we got to remember, our private HBCUs are not in university systems. So we don't have a system that's willing to tell our story at a system level. So it's on us to be able to do them press releases. But by the way, the person who may be doing the marketing, communication, and press releases may wear 5 hats.
Well, absolutely. Chances are they are.
Right. And so you tell them to do communication and marketing, but they're writing your next grant or they're stewarding your next donor. So, it's a little bit different in our smaller liberal arts college space when we're talking about the work being done. The work is being done. We just got to be able to take a break and testify.
Yeah, and that different does not mean deficient either.
Right. That's very true.
Does not mean deficient. It just means that it's different. So lead firm gets on and popping. You're working now, and you've come to realize that there are yet more gaps, which leads us to our conversation today. What the hell are you talking about, Jarrod?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I start looking at Jarrod first as a non-traditional student. When I got my bachelor's degree, I got a business administration bachelor's degree. It wasn't because I was gonna start no business, doc. It was because when I got to that school with that VA money I had, I said, add all these college credits up and let me know what the quickest thing gonna get me a degree. I remember his name, Dean Anasari, looked at me and said, you should do computer science or computer engineering. We didn't have an engineering program at Florida Memorial.
Yeah.
We had a computer science. I said, how long would that take? He said, about 2.5 years. I said, hold on. I'm gonna go down to the School of Business to see what they say. He said, Jarrod, you can finish in 1 year if you go in the summer. I said, that's what I'm gonna do. He said, which degree do you want? Finance, focus, marketing? I said, whichever the fastest. Because in all honesty, I felt as though I wasn't on level playing ground with those who graduated from high school with me, not knowing that financially I had surpassed them. I was a homeowner, had some children, doing well, but I still wanted that degree on my grandmama wall and that tassel on my mama rearview mirror. So I was trying to figure out what was the quickest path to that. So getting my degree, I then realized, my degree doesn't validate my 18 years of cybersecurity experience that I did peacetime and wartime.
Yeah.
My CV and my resume speaks to it, but my degree doesn't. And so what was the solution? So I began to research. Dr. Callwood, another lady named Dr. Riley, had wrote a grant for Memorial called IROAR. I began to be one of the researchers for the grant.
Yeah. And
as I was researching the grant, IROAR is actually endowed by the United Negro College Fund. And as we were doing the work on the research, they said, Jarrod, I want you to come up with some digital badges and micro credentials. So collectively, we decided to partner with LinkedIn Learning. That was our first approach. It's already scaled. It's already made. So digital badges, it's a validating indicator of skills and competencies that an individual possesses. So, a lot of times you graduate with your degree, doc, but guess what the job description says? Must have 2 to 4 years experience.
Got to have.
That's supposed to be entry level. So you look like, what, besides lying on my resume, how I'm going to tell somebody I got 2 to 4 years experience?
Which I'm certain happens.
Oh, come on. Now we know it happened. Matter of fact, folks can't do the job halfway. It's because they interview well. Right. And so for me, it was like, how can we build in these competencies in that multi-disciplines can seek out some careers of the future? Yeah. When I looked at this COVID-19 pandemic, do you realize that cybersecurity had an increase in opportunities versus other fields having a decrease for obvious reasons, right? Sure. Every school went to Zoom, Microsoft Teams, cyber hygiene grew, the need of cyber hygiene. And so in identifying that pre-COVID, during COVID, I've noticed that micro-credentialing, there was immediate need. So I looked at, one, the non-traditional student. I like to categorize in 3 ways: unemployed, underemployed, and incumbent workers.
Okay.
And then dissecting the last one, that's somebody who may be working HR at your job, but they want to be a cyber professional, but you don't want to pay to reskill them.
Yeah.
So what Department of Labor has done is opened up several grant opportunities for apprenticeship programs to be built, and or micro-credentialing or digital badging. So for the people who've been a little standoffish about it, you trying to replace our 4-year degrees? No. I'm trying to supplement in what you called internships that we know have creative ways of looking like internships for our graduates. I'm now infusing a curriculum-driven opportunity that will validate hands-on skills.
Yeah.
So now when they say 2 to 4 years experience, they can say this digital badge provided me with that level of experience, this micro-credential. Now when I come, you don't have to give me 6 months of training. Give me 2 weeks of showing me the ropes and the culture of the company, because I'm prepared to do the skill itself. So digital badges, I speak from a lens of cybersecurity. However, I've been able to scale this and even enhance areas that the employers have directly stated our student and scholars graduate with great GPAs and are lacking.
So we're not taking advantage, you would posit, that we're not taking advantage of probably one of the greatest gifts that we have on our campus is federal work study.
Correct.
So we could conceivably take a student who is in federal work study program, put them in CIS. It's not the same type of badge or credentialing, but what that student would be able to pick up if they were started out at the help desk, resetting passwords initially.
Yep. You cooking like fish grease.
Yeah, and move from that to uploading malware, et cetera, and 3 years in, they now leave with what we call co-curricular. A co-curricular, I guess you could say co-curricular transcript.
It is. Yep, it sure is.
That would have a similar impact as the credentialing. Is that something that that an area where we could take?
That would actually be the apprenticeship model, what you just stated.
Okay.
So the federal apprenticeship guidelines states you have to have 2,000 hours of on-the-job training and 144 hours of RTI, which is related to training and instructional curriculum. That's the perfect apprenticeship model, what you just stated. However, what I challenge is us to consider industry standard certifications.
Yes.
Those industry, now if you put those in there, let's say the micro credential was, let's just go as small as CPR. CPR was a badge.
Yeah.
After CPR, maybe we do, forgive me for not knowing the correct term, those who take our blood.
We'll just say advanced CPR.
There you have it. And so, next thing you know, they're learning the fundamental skills on how X-ray machines even work. Let's just start there. Not even doing an X-ray. Now you have a micro credential that could be an entry point for this student who may have been an education major or a business administration major.
Right.
Because he wanted to get that degree as quick as possible, like Jarrod walked in there. Yeah. I want an HBCU experience and a degree now.
Real quick.
And so now I can do things that are really tailored to what I said earlier, my passion.
Yeah.
And so now my professionalism will match my passion. So definitely digital badges have a strong place in our institutions.
So let me go back a little bit. And I think, what advice do you have for folks finding what that passion is, right? Because when folks get to folks get to college, it's some are starting out to be a doctor, and that biology and that chemistry put them ones and twos on them, and then it's I'm gonna go into engineering, and then those equations aren't as friendly.
5 years later, be a social worker.
Right. How do we get people? And then some people actually, are earnest, but figure out, like for me, my first semester of law school, I was acutely aware that being a lawyer was not it for me. Right. I knew it going in, but I was firm after understanding what little it took me to understand in that first semester of law school, that I wanted no parts of the legal system. I wanted to make sure that I was capturing people before they got into the legal system. That's where I was going to do my damage at.
Right.
But I'm one of the lucky ones, again, because of how things happened, because of my non-traditional sense. I knew that this was about getting a career, figuring out how quick I can get there, and this was about making money, right? At the end of the day as well. How do we get people to find that passion quickly so that they're able to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to get a degree in, but I'm going to go get some badging over here to supplement this may not be my passion,
Right.
but this is my passion here.
Well, I would say that first year student internships are important. I know a lot of times we look at that during our third and fourth year, but I believe first year internships are vital because it lets them sample in that place that they thought they had passion, or they may have passion. So I find first year internships very important in first year students. Also, we have to have our career services even more
Professionals.
robust. Yeah, I got to be honest. And I tell folks the most successful career services of those who have worked in the field, who have worked in that field and outside of higher education, because that's how we birthed one of my most recent digital badges is soft skills. You know, it was almost the employers directly stated, you bring me the most educated. You're bringing me those that have experience, but they can't communicate and they have no empathy, and credibility is questionable.
So soft skills, they call them emotional intelligence. Let's talk about that for a second. What are soft skills? Let's talk about those.
I would say first, soft skills are those skills that won't come from your discipline, and won't come from the field. They're gonna be skills that actually are actually, when I say soft skills, especially when you talk about emotional intelligence, there are those skills that I'm gonna first notice when I interact with you. I'm not gonna notice it from your work presence. So, you know, when you're given a briefing, are you able to communicate with your peers and leaders? That's effective communication, a soft skill that is intertwined into emotional intelligence. When you become a supervisor for the first time and somebody's running late and they say, Jarrod, my daughter's daycare said she had a cold, I had to take her back. You writing them up, or you exercising empathy? You know what I'm saying? When you say, hey, Dr. Felton, I'm gonna have that grant done by Friday, and I'm gonna have it submitted, it's gonna be in. And then Monday comes, I have no update because I ran into some obstacles Friday. Could I not communicate? And now is my credibility questioned?
Yeah,
So,
you're actually out of gas on Monday.
Come on now.
On Thursday night when you're falling short, that's probably the right time to make that phone call.
Right. I was hoping for Wednesday. You know,
Right.
You need to be communicating with your
I
obstacles.
agree.
It's gonna become,
agree
and it can
completely.
become a group project. But I always try to tell my subordinates you're hired now. So everything you embellish to get the job, I'm not judging you. I just need you to communicate where there's gaps.
I need you to come through.
Right. And if you can't come through, be vocal so we can make it a team project. But I'm only gonna show you that one time because you said you had it on your CV.
Well, that's the challenge with soft skills, right? My biggest thing, to be honest with you, is cell phone usage. I came from a space where I never went into my supervisor's meetings, God forbid, my president's meetings, looking on a cell phone, looking at a cell phone. I didn't take them into meetings because I was meeting with the one person that mattered at that time. Communication, I don't know if people really understand the importance of body language. And I don't think we take enough time on understanding how we present.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not cognizant, I don't think, of how they present, and are certainly not in tune with the golden rule. And that is, he who has the gold, he or she rules.
Right.
So, you know, whenever you come up into somebody else's stuff, however they lead, whatever they decide to do, is their prerogative.
Right.
And emotional intelligence and soft skills, good ones, for me, I can judge whether a person can read a room, can either change the temperature or set the temperature, right? Or get acclimated with the temperature. And I don't know that there is enough emphasis put on emotional intelligence or soft skills. In fact, I know there isn't.
That's real.
Yeah. But so very critical. And it goes back to, I think it really ties, really in a linear sense with the cultivation and stewardship of relationships. My mom would say, good stupid sense. You should have the good stupid sense to say thank you.
Right.
There are some things that you should know if you are an entrepreneur. Some things you should know if you're climbing the ladder.
Right.
Just some things that you should have. So I'm happy to hear that credentialing. Our Melva Williams is doing some strong work in soft skills as well.
Right.
And largely centered around customer service, though.
Okay.
I think she's doing some work and has done a great deal of research and doing some work in that space as well. So I'm happy to hear that you're focusing on that as well. And you said that folks are gaining badges in that space?
Yeah, so these badges, well, one, they go on your co-curricular transcript. You were spot on with the co-curricular transcript. But these badges really just lead up to the validation and completion of a micro-credential.
Yeah.
And that credential simply positions you to be more marketable for career pathway entry.
Yeah.
And it builds pathways. And some, I gave emphasis earlier where it could be outside the discipline, but there's instances where it's right on with the discipline.
Right.
And now it complements the discipline. Believe me, somebody come to you A+, N+, Security Plus certified with the CIS degree is that much more marketable. And by the way, that's the Department of Defense standard. So now he's not just marketable in this space, he can go work in the government space that fast. He or she.
You're talking about versatility as well.
Right.
Right.
And maximizing your 4 years. I always tell folks a degree on the wall is great, but them student loan payments coming 6 months after.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to walk across the stage and walk into a career and be ready to work. And this really opens up a door for our student and our scholars to be ready to work. What
do you think? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I call that synonymous with digital badges. They're ready to work. They're ready to work.
What's the greatest impediment, you think, from students graduating and not being ready to work?
I can tell you, I was actually having this conversation earlier with a friend. Some of our institutions, students focus so much on student leadership positions, they don't focus on career readiness. They give, and I see it, ambassadors of the institution got it down to a science. Our Royal Court leaders, our SGA leaders, our class leaders, as it pertains to classification. And they pour into the student body and pour into themselves in that leadership capacity. They forget you got to blast their resume out to somebody. They forget that, you need to be socializing as you're going to every parade in the city, in the state, and you're going to every function, and you're getting to be elbow to elbow with your university president, chancellor, vice president. Those conversations need to start. Dr. Felton, I am a chemistry major. Do you have any of your colleagues that have opportunity for chemistry? Versus Dr. Felton, I was hoping that you can get me on this trip and the Royal Court told me to go advocate for this. Or Dr. Felton, we was hoping that you was gonna get a bus because we wanted to go to this game and they told me to come talk to you. And at the town hall meeting,
but isn't that our fault too as administrators? Shouldn't our academic and student affairs professionals be just as adamant about them having those experiences as them making sure that they're ready to walk across that stage?
I always will own where improvement can be on both sides.
Yeah.
But I also will own the fact that if we were to audit our career services sign-in rosters, I just don't know if they're being populated by the entire student body. Now, could we enhance our student career services? But I always tell folks, before you come tell me to enhance, prove to me you using what I'm giving you thus far.
Mm.
You know, you're telling me you need more people in career services. I'm gonna ask you, how many times did you visit it in 4 years? If you tell me as a senior you hadn't been there since you was a freshman, I'm gonna tell you may not know how good he or she is in there. You know, so that's one area. Also, what I tell folks is even in the entrepreneur capacity or business owner capacity, I ensure 2 of my interns every year come from HBCU. So a lot of that, earlier we were talking about us giving to our own and understanding our own. You know, student experience directly connects me to why I want to give back. You know, and to be honest, I was older, so the experience I needed was a little different than the experience an 18 through 23-year-old needed.
Right.
But I can tell you the intentional relationships that were established are still my references on my CV today when I apply to jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that people understand that even your undergraduate years should be played as though you were playing three-dimensional chess. Mm-hmm. It is just not about Connect Four. It is just not as simple as being liked, as being respected because you are a hard worker or loyalist to the institution. You need to make sure that there is quid pro quo evidence there. I'm giving this to the institution, but when I leave, I've gotten this.
Yes, yes.
People need to be acutely aware that it's there for the taking too, right? It is there for the taking because all of the administrators, if they're worth any salt, they have relationships that can benefit the student, right?
Very true.
If you can't get a student into graduate school, law school, if you can't get a person an internship or, a job, that should be your focus. You should have cachet or gravitas in your back pocket to be able to do something for students who have demonstrated that they can carry your brand, right?
That's very true.
And so I think I am with you completely, because we hear oftentimes around April 20th, leading up to May 3rd, graduation might be the 5th, I'm constantly told I was misadvised. And my response always is to pull out the academic booklet and say, you see what this is? Advisement is a responsibility of the student as well as the institution. It is not just I was misadvised. So right. I do agree with you in that, it is not on the institution only. The student has some skin in the game as to why they're not able to walk across the stage and walk right into the next chapter in their lives.
We even did some research, Doc. What we did is we had a pool of students get business cards made during homecoming. And in every intentional interaction they had or conversation they started with an alum, they gave a business card. It didn't have a lot on it. It simply said their name, their discipline, their GPA, and their career choice. And we were able to monitor that over a 2-year period. That was one of the initial research projects that me and Taylor implemented in the early on in our company start. And we monitored those 2 HBCUs and that cohort of students that we tested that with. And 92% of them ended up in the career. And that was on the business card. Mm-hmm. Some of them went further and they had backpacks on because the next year we changed the research and we said, have your backpack resume. And they had copies of resumes. We even provided lead firm portfolios for each of the students, and they gave the portfolios out. People thought that I was a headhunting company because the lead firm, the resumes were in our folders, and it directly changed the game for students trying to get jobs. So what I tell folks is sometimes we're so focused on the turn up, we forget the fact that, post turn up, post graduation, we gonna need a job. No, better yet, I said it wrong. Not a job. We're going to need a career.
Yeah, reality sets in. It's funny because anecdotally, we do it every health institute. We give out our numbers, our personal numbers, to 25, 30 strangers that we're just meeting for. It is without fail that you will hear from 3 of them at the most.
Mhm.
At the most, 10% is what you will hear from. And those who stay connected, they're closest to the stove. If they are laid off, they get a job quickly.
Come on now. Yeah.
If they need counsel, pick up the phone. There's a relationship that is established. The point is that I'm clear after doing the work that we've been doing with health that everyone is not ready to run the race at the same time.
Oh, so
and
true.
you have to be okay with that when you're in service space, because you take on this notion of saving everybody, and
Right.
you can't. And it bothers you that people don't get it.
Oh, it does. It boils in me. Dr. Tierney Bates has a virtual luncheon that he's been doing for the last couple of months during the pandemic. And I was on there a couple months ago, and I was telling folks, when the job openings come, we're sharing it to our people. We're informing you about it. We're telling you, let us proofread your resume before you submit it. You're choosing to do your own thing. So as I'm inviting you to climb the ladder with me, you have to look in the mirror and determine, are you worthy of the climb?
Yeah.
Because we're pouring into you. We just want you to climb with us.
Yeah.
And more times than not, much like your 10% ratio, we're falling into a situation where some are just submitting a resume. Some are playing the copy and paste game. Some of them got issues on that resume that I wouldn't, I would have caught first glance. So we just have to ensure that even with our student population, even when the digital badges are on their resume, even when the micro credentials on their co-curricular transcript, are they positioned to land in the career on their feet?
And the one who would be most likely to land would have a degree, some micro credentialing, and some emotional intelligence, and a whole bunch of soft skills.
That's so real. And also took advantage of their opportunities. You know where I tell folks, if you want to lead and be able to fail and it not be any issue, and you still get to count it as experience on your resume, you should try student leadership.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, you can go over there and be the SGA comptroller. If you mess up on the treasury report, they ain't gonna let that agency account flip too bad because somebody monitoring you. Use that as your time to gain the most experience. So I always tell the academy our faculty members, encourage that. Encourage students to run. Encourage students to be leaders, because this is the only time you can lead and completely fail. And we say it's all right. You ain't the first one.
But that's what college is. Mm-hmm. That's what college is, a safe haven, a safety net that allows you the ability to make a mistake that doesn't kill you.
Right.
You have the safety net of advisors and a college to help you from killing yourself, or keep you from really injuring yourself. Mm-hmm. I agree, and I do think it's much like the position I take with students who want to call the media or protest. I will set up the microphones on my front porch and call the media for you. But you better be able to articulate what you want to talk about, right? I'm not going to stop you from protesting or any of that. I was the SGA president. I led a media storm at my alma mater. I get it. I understand that. But I learned even as a 29-year-old that I was ill-equipped to manage the media. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And so my message is always, this is where you should be able to advocate for yourselves. Even if you don't know what the hell you're talking about, go out and make some noise. Because when you get in the real world, there will be some prices to pay if you think you're at work and you're going to tell the supervisor that you don't like the way I'm looking at you today. And, you know, I'm gonna do what I want to do, or respond in ways that are not congruent to keeping your job. You know, college is a place where you should be able to make those mistakes, get coached up, and learn how to do it effectively to where it doesn't hurt you.
That is where it happens.
Yeah.
So I believe that this work, to be honest, we already have digital badges at every one of our HBCUs. We just haven't called it a digital badge yet.
That's right.
The way we foster our SGA leadership, the way we pour into our royal court. You know, when you talk about some institutions have a Dress for Success badge, tell me one royal court that ain't dressed to kill.
Cleaner than hospital cotton.
I'm talking about, I don't want to walk next to them unless I got on my best dress, because I know they finna come clean. I mean, you got some staff members. I remember when a couple of staff members was at another institution. I'd be at NASAP, like, come on now. They didn't make violent shoot. Even y'all royal court leaders. I'm looking like, come on now. So the point, we already have the badges.
Yeah.
But we require our SGA leadership, our drum majors, our marching majors, our Greek life leaders. You know, let's be clear. Our freshmen come on campus looking at Greek life.
Even in academic, we talk about, they've got this fancy word now called intrusive advisement. Folk have been snatched up out of the dorms for not going to school since we started our teaching, right? We have been engaged in students' welfare from day one. Campuses are so small. It's nothing to walk across the lawn and see the president and him to say, Jarrod, I heard you been slipping on classes, bro. What's going on?
Yeah, pull your pants up.
That's intrusive advisement. But now you want to put a fancy word on top of it and act as though you have reinvented or created something that we've been doing, quite frankly, since day one.
Doc, I grew up from the South, single mama, Koji.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know, come on now.
You say Koji?
Come on, that's when your neighbor at the church can give you a disciplinary action on your mama behalf, and then let your mama know about it, and you're going to get a nutting because you shouldn't.
When you get home.
You better act like you know. So,
yes,
it's nothing new, the culture that I was able to be a part of at my alma mater, and now take that as a framework on how I'm going to lead. So I say, how our registered student organizations have to be trained before they're registered. That's a badge. The work that they do from first year to year of graduation, or like the graduating seniors like to say, I'm a graduating senior.
Yeah.
So all those are badges that we just need to title them as such, make them credentials. Come on now. And then when they graduate into the workforce, turn in that assessment data. So now it's accredited credentials that we're doing at our institution.
Man, let me tell you something. I used to think that my sponsor, Jimmy Jenkins, was crazy when all he talked about was extracurricular, co-curricular transcripts. And what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And now, I got it before I left his employ, but you are spot on. You may be ahead of the wave, Jarrod. You really may be, especially in our space.
It's a place where I found lead firm be able to, one of my passion, it started out as my passion project, and now my passion project, has grown. And, it's a way I found that, I can come in and show an institution some tools that you already have. Help
almost
them
immediately.
Come on now, help them enhance those tools. Now we partner with the academy, call it a credential, title it, and now ensure that those students that you had those vendors come to your school and teach hazing prevention. They came and taught ethics in the classroom, ethics in the academy, conflict resolution in the resident halls. Now we couple those three, and we've enhanced your soft skills. And now you have a soft skill badge that can be quantified and qualified on your co-curricular transcript. It's an immediate money maker. And now it becomes one of those things where there was a time when I was growing up in Louisiana, a 4-year degree, boy, you was the hottest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
Now, a graduate degree is that. Now it's a terminal degree, So now as it grows, this is something that separates you from your peers when it's time to apply to the workplace. Yeah. And it's a conversation starter. When I see digital badge on your transcript, I'm looking like, can you talk to me about it?
Yeah, what's
and
that?
Come on now. And as they talking about it, now you're starting to say, this is a value to the culture of my work environment that I'm bringing you in.
Yeah.
And so it adds value to the workplace. It adds value to our career pathways. And also, it shows that HBCUs have a capability to continue to produce global leaders in our global workforce. There's not a time now where you graduate from Florida Memorial and you're going to work only in Miami Gardens. No, you graduate from Florida Memorial and you're going to be a global leader wherever you land your feet. We got, some of my students. Wherever
you decide to go.
Come on. One of my students is in the Netherlands working for Nike as a cyber professional, graduate from Florida Memorial University. So it's not necessarily we're creating people for our zip code. We're building global leaders. So as HBCUs, like we've always done groundbreaking things, this is something groundbreaking that we can champion, testify, ensure it's accredited, valued, and now implemented on a global scale. And that's why I say it works best in a consortium framework.
Yeah. I hear it, man. I hear it. You are emoting micro-credentialing, my brother.
Yeah, man. And we've been able to champion the market also. I mean, Taylor, you were able to share your 9 to 5, or really probably your 12 to 12 as a university president.
24/7, bro.
I'm a cyber apprenticeship director at a university here in Florida, and Taylor is the vice president and chief operating officer for Rap Snacks. And Rap Snacks, it was when she went to that company, they were making like $2 million a year. They make $12 million a quarter because she was able to understand the value of relationships and stewarding. And we were able to transfer that into entrepreneurs. So something else I tell folks is all these digital badges have to be transferable skills.
Yeah.
Whether you transfer them into your workplace or you're transferring them into, into your entrepreneur. And every student want to be an entrepreneur. I got more student Instagram business pages trying to follow me than anything else. But I'm proud to see that entrepreneur spirit is really birthed in our Gen Z population.
Yeah.
So it's really imperative that we train them.
It's on them like the skin that they're in, my brother. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and that's really not about a bad thing. To at least have the mindset of an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Definitely is not a bad thing, because if you can get a person to think about the entrepreneurial mindset, even for the employer that they work for, they make the company better because they look at it from a different perspective. So it is never bad to have that skill set or that mindset. We just have to make sure that there's a lot more to it than I want to start my own business.
Right.
I don't know what that means.
And potentially, guess what, Doc? That could be a badge.
Yeah.
Literally, I've had peers. How do you file for your LLC? How do you apply for an EIN? Although it's Google, you can find it on Google. Just walking through those steps could be a micro-credential.
It's still, it's still work. It's not easy.
Oh, definitely. Oh, come on.
Just because it is easy, it is not easy.
Oh, there's some LLCs out there making zero revenue. We know it.
Yeah. No doubt, man. Well, I have to tell you that this has been insightful for me. Your passion, it's no wonder or no surprise that you and your firm and your co-owner have found yourselves 5 years down the road with 126 partners in the higher ed space. What's next for Lead Firm?
Lead Firm.
And where do you see yourself in 5 more years?
In 5 years, I'm hoping to grow the team of Lead Firm, because ultimately my goal in the next 5 years is to move into the HBCU space in the capacity of a vice president. And as I move into that space, I know some of the latitude that I have now and the ability to me and the team that we do have to cover all of our institution partners, my presence with the goal I have professionally, I will have my capacity will definitely decline consulting wise. That's
Absolutely.
And so, to grow our team with and train our team too, because everybody has their own thoughts of what consulting looks like until they come on board. And so that's one area of growth. The other area of growth is I want to ensure that we're producing scholarly research that can be game changing in this higher ed space, or in full transparency for people who look like me. Coming from Natchitoches, Louisiana, it's only Walmart and ConAgra. Those are the two big jobs. One of them is a chicken place. The other one, we know what Walmart is.
Yeah.
I want to ensure communities such as Natchitoches have pathways. If I got to bring digital badges to a community like that, so that's a lead firm mission.
Let me just tell you this, Jarrod. You are, you're spot on. The work that you're doing is admirable, but know that, and it's not really not a but recognize that we are oftentimes devalued in our space, and the devaluation outside of our space is even worse. Mm-hmm. And when we use terms like being respected and highly reputable and these well-resourced journals with great review, I really could care less about what mainstream says, does, because for so long they have been able to quantify or validate our existence, and it hasn't worked for us. There are so many scholars that I know that do great work, and their research or their ability to be in a journal is predicated on somebody having value on their voice, what they have to say. Right. We created a journal on HBCU leadership. It'll be out in December. And we did that because sick and tired of hearing these young brothers and sisters who are doing amazing work, having their spirits crushed because someone wants to determine whether or not what they have to say matters. Yeah. I say all that to say that while you've built, lead firm, don't close off the idea that you may have to build academic journals, you may have to build brick and mortar spaces and places for us. Just be open to whatever God and the ancestors and the clouds have for you to do. Because they are tricky, and the way they move is even trickier.
Oh no, I received that and I appreciate it. I really do. Me and Taylor are excited, man. I will tell you this in full transparency. We didn't know it would get this far, and we're overly excited that we will. And earlier I used the word and said I'm doing the work that I'm passionate about. I would like to even say even further, I'm doing the work that I'm called to do.
Yeah.
And truly walking in your calling is different, because what I've noticed is places that I've walked, my foot fits the footprint that I'm laying my foot in because I'm supposed to walk there.
I know the plans that I have for you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's that simple. Even when you're tired of doing that work, it is, I remember sharing with Travis, when it's impregnated by God and fueled by Jesus, you don't have anything to do with it per se. You don't have anything to do with when you start the blessings that come to you. And that's why it's so important to do stuff that is rooted in a good place. And I've said to people oftentimes, if you're serving people and you're doing it out of a good place, it's kind of hard to fail, man. It just really is. It can happen, but I've found that if God puts something in you, and you're doing it out of a good space, man, success, if you have the stomach and the patience for it, you'll be in good space.
Definitely, brother.
Yeah. So what else you got for us, brother?
Man, just maybe a little encouragement for those who are, new consultants out there or jumping in this space in higher ed. Every step matters. Growing up with my mom, Doc, it was 3 boys and a daughter. And my sister, boy, I used to be jealous of her and my mama relationship because my mama was raising some men, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, yo, you're going to open this door for me. You're going to do this. You're going to go carry these groceries up the steps. And as a clumsy young man, I used to fall all the time. Everybody in my neighborhood knew me for that. They clowned me. And I would try to skip steps. We lived in a 3rd floor apartment. And, walking up them steps, carrying grocery bags out the car, you're going to carry so many, your circulation about to be cut out your hand. You ain't making 2 trips to the car.
Hands are white.
I'm talking, red lines, but I'm getting all these in one walk because I promise you I ain't going to. You got 40 bags on each hand, but you're going up the steps. Yeah. And, going up those steps, I tried to be tough and skip a couple steps to speed up my trip. And boy, did I fall, eggs and everything. My mama was hot. She said, I know you ain't broke my eggs. So years later, maybe a couple more times it happened. But now when I think about it in another lens, every step had a purpose.
Yeah. And
because I was skipping steps, I fell and broke them eggs. And so I tell our new entrepreneurs, don't skip no steps. Don't skip no steps. Every single step got a purpose. Me and Taylor, when we had 3 gigs, we didn't skip a step. We didn't skip a step and badmouth folk who was badmouthing us. When we did program proposal submissions and we didn't get allowed to come to a conference, we started our own conference. Yes, when I started my own conference, I had 14 people show up to my first conference in Atlanta. I partnered with Battle of the Bands. The next year I had 236. The next year I had 514. Because what was for me, I said, you ain't gonna block me out of spaces. I'm not gonna skip steps and conform to what you view my company should be when I know why I started it. So we started 1 conference. This year, we did 3 conferences the last academic year. All of them were successful. This year, we got 4 conferences.
Yeah.
So with that being stated, where my program proposals used to get rejected, now the big conferences are asking us to be partners. And they say, don't even do no program proposals. Just give me the names of your speakers and y'all show up. So it changes because I didn't skip a step.
That's
and
right.
So I want to share with the listening audience, every step has a purpose. And if I didn't get beat down that first year with all the steps that we stepped on, year 5 wouldn't taste so sweet.
Yeah.
I used to drive 18 hours to speaking engagements because our honorarium we couldn't float a flight out that honorarium. All we could float was gas. So since to be in that driver's seat, like if you drive 9 hours, I'm gonna drive 9. We're gonna get dressed in this car and I'm gonna sit out the car. Taylor get dressed, I get dressed in the car. Guess what? We at Langston, Oklahoma. Now we finna speak. But you know what? It grew to this. And now that we have it, a lot of folks look at it on the side of victory, but didn't see the side of test until it turns into testimony. So I need everyone to know, definitely take every step. And guess what? You don't have to leave the academy to consult. Both of them can work, but you got to figure out that happy medium. So perception is something I want to leave folks with. Between 9 and 5, I got 2 full-time employees that get paid to do the work. But I still control, because they have control of my LinkedIn pages. They have control of some of my social media platforms. I tell them between 9 and 5, FIU is paying me. So y'all don't change the perception to make it look like lead firm a little more important than FIU. So,
that's right.
So what I had to do is control perception. Because a lot of times folk do the math before you can do the math. Okay, if he got 126 partners, that means he making, hold on, is he making more than me? And the attitude change in the workspace.
You are so right, man. And how important it is for these young entrepreneurs and consultants to understand that they need to make sure that they're talking after hours, that they're presenting after hours, that they are doing conferences on their own dime and not on just the perception that you have to.
And I had that conversation up front with my leadership.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got to my institution, do you have a conflict of interest form that I can fill out? They're like, why? I'm like, I own a consulting firm that does a lot of work with a lot of institutional partners. And I want to ensure that I'm not playing in the gray area. I prefer to play in black and white.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, Jarrod, you can sign this. No problem. We'll do this. And so I'm above board in all that I do. So now my leadership, to include my university president, they celebrate my success.
Yeah.
And like I tell, I always want my leadership to use the pronoun we versus I and you, because sometimes I and you will have me going to HR looking for another place to work.
I and you is not good.
So when they start saying, Jarrod, we are so proud of your success.
Yeah.
Or did you see one of our directors? He was at like 14 schools when he took a week of leave. And I'm strategic. I build that leave up during hot speaking season. You know, when people are taking big summer vacations, guess what, Doc? I'm going to work.
Yeah.
Because I know speaking season coming in the fall. And I got to figure out how I can, use some of that time to my benefit.
Get on top of that. Yes,
Come
sir.
on now. I'm talking to my neighboring institutions. Can I speak at 6 because I get off at 5? I'm gonna drive over to FAU.
Yeah.
You got to kind of, and you have to do that until you're prepared to make consulting your full-time job. Otherwise, your full-time job might not feel the same way about what you're passionate about.
It's tricky, man. It really is tricky.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you echoed that sentiment about having the stomach and the patience to see it through.
See it through. And it's gonna be victorious if it's for you.
Yeah.
If it's for you, it's gonna be victorious. Steve Urkel. Everybody, anybody in our color better know Family Matters.
Absolutely.
I tell folks it came on at 7:30 in between Step by Step and Full House.
Steve
Urkel, daddy was a post office worker and he had a job for him. He said, when I retire, you get in my route. But he read in that casting call and he felt like that role was his, even when they told him no at first. So they wrote off Julie. People don't remember Julie, Laura's sister. They wrote her off the show. They wrote Mama Winslow off the show. In fact, Steve Urkel had a role, and Laura fell in love with Stefan. So he had 2 roles. What it showed me was when you're determined, you'll get what's yours and you'll get double what's yours.
A little more.
Come on now. So I charge and challenge us to be determined, not just in the digital space of digital badges and micro credentials, but in some of our passionate projects. Be determined, because if it's for you, you're going to get double what's yours if you just stay committed.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been enlightening, inspiring, and insightful, this little time that we've spent together, Jarrod. I certainly appreciate it. We have never met in person. I do appreciate you being a man of words. You have given to Wiley College. I know you have relationships with several of my teammates, but I do appreciate the work that you are doing, have watched you in the space, and am happy to see you having all the successes that you have, and am grateful that you came on and shared a little motivation and inspiration and aspiration for those behind you. I think that's critically important, that we always think about who's coming behind us, who's next, with a good spirit, not one feeling as though someone's going to take something that's yours, because
that's real.
There's so much out here for everybody.
For sure.
And if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you ain't got to worry about anybody else.
That's real.
In that space. So I hope you're still riding that Harley, man.
Come on now, I am. We got good weather in Miami year round now.
Yeah. I have last week I was able to do 2 missions. One of the reasons why I bought my Harley was to escort veterans home. So I'm a part of the East Texas Patriot Guard, and I got 2 missions in last week. Unfortunately, somebody has passed, but I've never seen anything.
That's beautiful, man.
Anything like it, bro. And anytime a bunch of Harleys get together, it's a whole different experience, man.
I tell folks, it's a brotherhood. You don't even got to know who on the Harley.
Man, listen.
You're going to chunk the deuce and keep rolling.
That's it.
I'm telling you.
Something.
Hey, when you in Tallahassee, near home, you let me know, man. I ride up there. We'll do a little ride.
I definitely do that, because I pull it just about everywhere I go.
But maybe I convince you to ride down 95 a little bit further.
Listen, I'm good with that. I'm just not driving. I'm not riding from Texas.
Oh no, that's asking a lot at you. That's asking a lot.
I'll pull her to Florida. I'll pull Harriet to Florida.
Maybe what we'll do, we can meet. We'll meet in Tampa or Orlando.
There you go. There you
A
go.
little bit
There
hand
you
wave for
go.
both of us then.
My man.
Indeed. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Doc.
Likewise. It has been a wonderful evening. The Higher Education Leadership Foundation's Four Thoughts of Our Founders with the co-founder of the lead firm, Jarrod Benjamin. It's been a great evening. Look forward to watching him prosper and hope that God still enriches your territory, man.
I receive it, and
Grateful
thank you so much
for you sharing this with us, and look forward to catching up with you and riding them hogs, man.
Definitely, bro. You take care, man.
All right, bro. Be good.